lots of issues there in Tennessee that go well beyond Brian Callahan. All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for October the 14th. Week 6 is now in the books. We've got a lot to get to, and that starts, of course, the biggest news of the week, which is the Titans firing Brian Callahan after just 23 games. He finishes his time as Tennessee's coach at 4-19, and I'm not here to defend Callahan. I understand why people wanted him gone. When they hired him back in January 2024, they were projecting him as a leader. They were projecting him as a play caller. And things didn't work out on either count. His leadership style didn't resonate the same way that Mike Vrabel's had over 6 years in Tennessee. The players liked him, but I'm not sure they responded to him the same way they'd responded to Vrabel. And then just from an offensive scheme, play calling standpoint, obviously you're not getting the level of production or progress that you'd hoped you'd get from your rookie quarterback. But I think the issues in Tennessee are much bigger than just the head coach. In the last 34 months, can really illustrate that for you. Go back to December of 2022. The Titans abruptly fired general manager John Robinson. That was just a few days after A.J. Brown went off on his old team in the Eagles' rout of the Titans. They hire Rand Carthon a month later to replace John Robinson. They empower Mike Vrabel. They put Mike Vrabel at the top of the pyramid when it comes to football operations. A year later, Amy Adams-Strunk, the team's owner, decides she doesn't like the climate in the building. So now Vrabel's gone, and she's promoting Chad Brinker, who was Rand Carthon's number 2, to president of football operations. So now Carthon is reporting to Brinker. So they let that go for a year. Then after that, they fire Rand Carthon. They bring in Mike Borgonzi. So now they're on their third GM in that stretch. They go into year 2 with Callahan. And of course, now we know that Callahan only lasts 6 games into his second year. To me, so much of this is about ownership, and ownership that's not present in the building on a day-to-day basis, but is making these sweeping decisions over and over and over again. Amy Adams-Strunk lives in Texas. She's not around a lot. And what we've seen from her and the perception inside that building, the people who work for her have this perception that when you embarrass her, when she's made to look bad, she acts. And so that was A.J. Brown making the organization look bad in 2022. That was, a year later, the Mike Vrabel making her feel like maybe she was a little shut out, right? And then a year after that, it was sinking to the bottom of the league. And now it's this. That game in Vegas, there was a large family contingent there. The Adams family, a large family contingent there. And obviously she didn't feel great about the way that game went just a week after they get their first win. Again, I don't know. I don't think anybody was under the illusion that if things kept going the way that they were going, that Callahan was going to get a third year. In fact, much of the football brass had already sort of started to view it as a fait accompli that they were going to be running a coaching search after the year. But they were going to give Callahan the year to work this out, and they were going to see where the thing went. And the idea was that there wasn't much benefit they would get from firing him. In fact, there could be a detriment in that they would lose his dad, Bill Callahan, who's one of the most respected line coaches in the sport. And now that's happened. And so now they go to Mike McCoy. And again, I just think you look at where the organization's been over the last 34 months, and I think they've got some bright people there. I think Chad Brinker is a really bright, promising football executive, although we haven't seen it yet, right? From a production standpoint, Mike Borgonzi, one of the most respected evaluators in the business, he's built out a really experienced, accomplished scouting staff there. So I feel like you've got the right people. You got a lot of the right people there. And I would think that they're going to run a really coherent coaching search, but who's to say that they're going to get the time to build this the way that they need to build it? And if you're a coach and you look at this, right, and you look at the organization, what's convincing you that this is a great job now? In fact, if you don't like Cam Ward, I'd almost say stay away, because Cam Ward is getting at least 2 more years there after this one, unless he completely falls on his face. And if you're not wild about Cam Ward, or you don't think Cam Ward is going to make it as a quarterback, and you say, okay, we'll give him the 2 years to see where he goes. Well, who's to say you're going to get more than 2 years based on what's happened in that organization? So to me, I just looking at where they're at, this is about Amy Adams-Strunk looking in the mirror and reflecting on this and saying, I need to be around more often, or I need to step away completely. and I need to let my football people do their work. I need to maybe go and give the next head coach a 6-year contract to show him some support and give him some runway. Again, this is an organization that very recently was in a really good spot, that had winning seasons in 6 straight years under John Robinson. Again, 4 of those years with Mike Vrabel as the head coach, 2 division titles under Mike Vrabel, an AFC title game under Mike Vrabel. They were in a spot where things may not have been great inside the building and needed some working out, but a great owner winds up working to work those things out. And now both those guys are gone, and both those guys' replacements have now been fired, and you are in this state of just constant change. And that's what needs to stop. You need to pick a lane. You gotta pick a plan, and you gotta stick to it, and you gotta ride it out. And again, like, I've got confidence that Brinker and Borgonzi are going to find the right coach. I think it'll probably be an experienced coach. I don't know that they're going to take a shot on projecting somebody the way that the organization projected Callahan. But this has to come from the top. And right now, Adam Strunk's reputation precedes her. And the only way to fix that is by giving people the proper runway to do their jobs at the highest level possible, so you can find a way to build a sustained winner. Lots of issues there in Tennessee that go well beyond Brian Callahan. All right, our second topic for this week is what we saw last night, which was the Buffalo Bills going into Atlanta and really looking shaky for the second straight week. You see the mistakes out there. The injuries starting to pile up. Not having Dalton Kincaid, Matt Milano is not in the lineup. Then in game, you lose Connor McGovern, who's obviously a big piece of what they're doing. And I think there are some big picture questions with the Bills. Do they need to augment ahead of the trade deadline? They're now 4-2. It's a really rough 3-game stretch that they're coming off of, where they struggle against the Saints. They lose to the Patriots. They lose to the Falcons. I'd say from a roster standpoint, they're better than those 2 teams that they lost to. The way I look at Buffalo now is they've got to find a way to get healthy. The schedule is favorable. I don't think that this is the end of the Sean McDermott era, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions about that coming up. They've shown an ability to work their way out of these sorts of situations in the past. And I do think a piece of this is going to be taking an honest look at your roster over the next few weeks. They go into their bye now, taking an honest look and saying, okay, where do we need to get better? Where can we help Josh Allen? Do we need to add another weapon there? Do we need add another player to our secondary? Ask those sorts of questions. Take an honest look at your roster, because you're in a championship window, and that door is wide open for them to go and win the AFC this year. I think they'll get there. That's too good an organization not to get there, but this is obviously a relatively significant bump for the team. Finally, our third topic for this week is the revival of the Kansas City Chiefs. And this goes back to what I just said about Buffalo, is you trust people in charge to do their jobs and be able to pull themselves out of tough situations. And I think that's exactly what's happening in Kansas City now. I talked to some people there over the last couple of days. There's a lot of excitement for the direction of the offense now and the direction of the team in general. And I think what you saw in Detroit was a team that was playing with urgency, and a team that's starting to find its stride. Pat Mahomes is playing at an exceptionally high level, and he has been for a few weeks now. And I think what you're seeing is Pat Mahomes taking it upon himself to pull the team season out of the fire. And what you're seeing is him lifting guys like Tyquan Thornton up, like Noah Gray up, like Brashard Smith up, and making up the difference for what they've lost and some of the things that they've been dealing with early in the year. And now they've got Xavier Worthy back in the lineup. Travis Kelce's starting to hit his stride a little bit. Josh Simmons has some experience. Now, he didn't play this week, but their depth with Jalen Moore showed up and being able to make it work at left tackle without Simmons in there. So their offensive line's in a better spot than it's been the last couple of years. And now they have Rashee Rice coming back. And that is a very, very big deal. They view him internally as their very best skill position player. And they feel like now the vision that they've had for the team, which was to get more aggressive offensively, to play more aggressive, to call it more aggressive, is going to come into focus. The whole idea over the last 2 years for them has been to have, and to simplify this in football terms, to have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown taking the top off the defense and Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce running in space underneath. That can now all come to fruition. And so I'm excited to see where the Chiefs can go, because I think that win over the Lions for them is just the start. Appreciate you guys coming out. As always, you can leave your comments on YouTube below. You can also get to me on social media at Albert Breer on Twitter, at Albert R. Breer on Facebook, at Albert_Breer on Instagram. We will see you here in the next day or two with a video mailbag.